Hello and welcome to Epic BattleCry. This is the place where we cut through the crap to bring you the real deal on the gaming today. I'm your host, Tony Grice. With me, Daniel Kaiser, Brent Adams.
Hi.
And it is, of course, July 29th, 2014, and it's a Tuesday. So,
does anybody do a good Kermit the Frog impression? Kermit the Frog. That's not too bad.
That's pretty good, actually.
That ain't too bad at all. We should do an episode of the show entirely in character as Muppets.
I know I can do Mickey.
I'm not sure that we don't do that already.
Touche.
Birdie.
I think
I want to be the Swedish Chef so bad.
3D!
Oh, the popcorn's a puppet in your face. 3D! That's not how 3D works, never mind.
All right, well, so today we have a question coming from Butch Greuel.
Awesome.
I believe, and,
that sounds like an energy drink.
Yeah,
I can see drinking for energy.
I see that.
Hey, man, I'm just lagging today.
Could also be the name of a punk band. Could be the name of a T-shirt line. Could be the name of beer.
I was gonna say, like, it could be something
Butch
sold
Greuel
like
could be
Hollister's.
What kind of beer? A great name for a band.
What kind of beer would Butch Greuel be?
Definitely something pretty hoppy.
Like a stout.
Yeah, I was gonna say pretty
stout IPA.
Maybe a stout. Maybe a stout. I don't know.
I could see a stout.
Oddly enough, it's not a beer. And it is the name of somebody who sent us a question.
Sorry, and we're actually butchering his name right now. So
talk amongst yourselves. Daniel and I are we're gonna talk hops. Hang on.
All right. Well, anyway, so Butch sent us a question at the old EpicBattleX Twitter handle, and he says, "The state of gaming journalism, is it a smart career choice? GT has been sold. Adam Sessler and Marcus Beer are leaving the old YouTubes, and how is the financial state of EBA?" So a couple of questions in there, but the basic idea, I think, is just what is the state of gaming journalism, and is it a smart idea to get into that career right now? DK, I'd say it'd be a great way for us to start with you, because I mean you definitely have the deepest roots in the industry, or had.
Yeah. Do you
want to start us off?
Sure. To answer the question about the financial state of EBA, EBA is basically funded and supported by the community through our war chest, and basically our only goal is to make sure that we don't have to have ads on the site in order to pay for operational costs. So none of us really make any money doing this. It's just something we do for fun, and we have a war chest in order to facilitate the ongoing nature of the podcasts and the community and all that type of stuff. Yeah,
Mumble server, all of that stuff that's community driven.
Right. So, which is great, which I think, it allows no ads and allows the community to kind of have a very, just pure experience. And so thank you to everyone who contributes to the War Chest. We're doing fine on that front. As far as the state of game journalism, smart career choice, I think things have changed quite a bit in the decade since I have been in the industry. I think the gaming industry in general was trying to be validated 10 years ago that, you can have these, you had websites, you had IGN, you had GameSpot, you had other things, you had magazines, GamePro and other stuff.
I remember those. Yeah. That little paper,
paper that you'd buy at the grocery store, at the whatever bookstore. But anyway, the industry has evolved a lot, meaning that these other forms of media, especially social media, have meant that game critics or media outlets who cover games for the sake of providing an editorial voice are becoming less and less prominent, because quite frankly the companies don't need them. That's what I've really discovered in the last several years. It was a different story at the beginning of game trailers. They needed us in order to showcase their games and get the word out, because they didn't have the facilities and they didn't have the capabilities to be able to put together well-produced videos that kind of put their games in a good light, or at least allowed us to cover them, whether it was good or bad. We were able to provide coverage. That's changed. Everybody's got a YouTube channel. Every game company, small, big, whatever, it doesn't matter. Everybody has the capability to produce the message that they want. And so my experience is that the gaming outlets are more or less seen as middlemen now that are sacrificial because of the fact that if your message isn't going to be a positive one, then why put it out there?
Right.
That isn't to say that these game companies don't play ball with journalistic outlets, because they do want their games reviewed. That is another form of coverage of them, and they want to know how they're being measured. But at the same time, less and less and less media has been dealt out as exclusives, and also just the general sense that you need game journalists to give you the insight into the game is being kind of sidestepped by the companies themselves. So to answer your question, because of that means that being a quote-unquote gaming journalist, in my opinion, is becoming less and less viable. It doesn't mean it's any less important, and it doesn't mean that gamers shouldn't be looking to those people, and it doesn't mean that we don't need people to share honest opinions about games in order to help make great purchasing decisions. But what it means is that the industry controls the message more so than they ever have before, and it's because of the things that I mentioned.
I think it's also really interesting to look at where certain voices within the industry, how the presentation and the reportage, as it were, has kind of evolved. In my RSS feed, I've got a bunch of different websites, and it's really fascinating to look at Kotaku's headlines next to, say, Polygon's, and to think back on like what Kotaku was as a website 10 years ago.
Right.
And it was Polygon.
Basically, yeah.
I mean, it really
that's exactly right. It's fascinating to see where Kotaku is right now, and to read Polygon and to see the presentation that they have and all of the things that they discuss about gaming. They have a really kind of strong. They talk a lot about like the social aspects of gaming, the culture of gaming, how the industry is affecting culture at large, how culture at large is working within the industry. They have managed to carve out, I think, a pretty interesting segment of the market for themselves by, I think, just focusing on issues that are relevant and thought-provoking, and not just trying to kind of beat down the door and be the first person to post the trailer to Twitter or something.
Right, and that's almost what you have to do in this day and age, because the other method that I mentioned is becoming less and less viable.
Yeah.
Well, and frankly, too, the old sort of way of doing things just is not very time friendly, and this day, in this sort of immediacy of all the information you get. I mean, you literally get information. I mean, like, it used to be like, finding out like some secret bit of information that wasn't supposed to get out, was pretty rare. And if it did happen, it was kind of a big deal. Now, I mean, hell, most of us believe that the companies themselves leak a lot of this information.
Oh, sure.
And it's done through, frankly, you kind of have this idea of the old sort of state of like journalists being through sort of one main kind of agency or whatever, or entity, whereas now it's like everybody does their own Twitters, everybody does their own YouTube channel. It's so sort of amoebas that it's still something I think a lot of people would be worth getting into, but you probably won't be doing it in the same way that a game journalist from 10 years ago would have been doing it. You'll probably be doing it on your own, and hopefully either financing it through ads on your page or some sort of other things you got going on, or whatever,
or there's going to be a certain amount of open slots. And that's the thing, like you're saying, covering the gaming industry, it's still viable to think about covering the game industry from a variety of perspectives. One of the unfortunate things that I will say about my time at GT was, for years and years and years, I tried to really push for the more in-depth behind the scenes look at the people, let's explore. To me, it was a shame, and I remember having this conversation as early as like 2009 with heads at GT and stuff. But for me, it's a shame that you can walk out to the street and say, "Hey, who's Steven Spielberg? Who's any famous kind of
Michael Bay,
Michael Bay, or even Stephen King, in the realm of literature and stuff. But if you ask those same people, who's Shigeru Miyamoto, who's Will Wright, they don't have answers for you most of the time. So that's the industry's fault, is that we've not done a good job of promoting it from within and actually covering the people and actually the development process to a level that is very informative to encourage people to understand what goes into it. And that was something something I've always been passionate about, always wanted to do. Never really got a chance to do it at game trailers, but I think that if you're going to do that type of stuff, then there's more of a future in it than just covering games.
I would say, just as a small little ad before we wrap up, I do think, though, that partially, that same problem you talked about, people not knowing the individual creators, I think a lot of that is the companies themselves, because essentially they want you invested in
the brand
Nintendo, not Shigeru Miyamoto necessarily.
Exactly,
they do want you to know his name,
which absolutely wants you invested in a Michael Bay.
Although I still think that they want you less interested in Michael Bay over Paramount. Like they would still rather have you know that the Transformers movies come from Paramount and Michael Bay or whatever. You know, like they still want you to have that kind of correlation.
Honestly, it's the same thing in opposite directions. I mean, you're leveraging a name to get,
but if that person has the power, they still want the power. You know, they still want that.
The company wants to retain.
They want
the
them
power,
to be. They want them to be profitable, and they want them to work well for them. And if they ever want, they want that control though, so that if that person ever decides to go away or do something else or just dies, whatever, they can, they still sort of have that. That
is an interesting point about, they kind of want, like, look, we don't like is it in their interest to put a face on that and say, hey, like we have this really talent, like this, this Ken Levine, guy working for us that, makes these really interesting games, as opposed to saying, like, we want gamers to associate BioShock with 2K, and know that when they come to 2K, they're going to get great games like BioShock. Like, I can't,
because like a Ken Levine leaves, they still want you to go back to their company for.
There's been very few instances of that happening. The ones I could think of are like Sid Meier's Sid Meier Civilization.
Well, you could say,
certainly Cliff Bleszinski. I mean, but he was so good at kind of promoting himself and making himself larger than life and whatnot.
You could even say Bungie, though, like not even maybe a person per se, but just a company. I mean, they were known for Halo, but Microsoft really built up Halo, more so than Bungie. But that way, when Bungie left, they were able to hold on to that, and it'd still be a profitable thing for them. But anyway, a really good question, very solid question, and hopefully that doesn't dissuade you. I mean, if that's something you're really passionate about, definitely go into.
Yes,
I mean, you may be poor and broke and can't eat, but
even if you just want to be involved with games, I mean, take those talents and stuff. I mean, there's really exciting careers. That's not to say that working at a video game company and helping to create a content, outline and a plan for promotion, that doesn't have to be like a lame corporate job. That could be fun and exciting too. So if you're into writing, if you're into content creation and stuff, there's more exciting choices now at a variety of game developers than there ever have before, and publishers. But at the same time, it depends on what your interest is. So there are opportunities out there. It starts with being proactive and getting yourself out there. So best of luck to you.
Definitely. All right. Well, great question, Butch. We appreciate it. And, as always, make sure you send your questions to the old @EpicBattleX at twitter.com/@EpicBattleX. And anyway, that's it for Tuesday. We will see you tomorrow on, what's the day after Tuesday?
Wednesday.
No, that's not it. No, it's...
Hey, I'm going to go grab a Butch Greuel from the fridge. Anybody need anything?
Yeah, I'll take one too.
These are so refreshing. Butch Greuel. Butch. It sounds like, remember those old commercials? Head to the mountains of Bush.
My God, I do remember that. Bush. Beer.
I don't know that it sounds anything like that.
It actually sounded pretty close.
No,
I will defend DK on this one. He's got that. It's a lot closer to what he's doing than not.